My dad worked very hard in his life to achieve his dreams. He believed that getting to the next level meant working hard on his game while everyone else was resting.
It's just a life-changing thing with one shot of a bullet or whatever the case is, it changes lives.
In the middle of the night hours, just past 1 a.m. on November 26th, several men would break into Sean Taylor's 5-bedroom home.
He asked me where his machete was, and I told him that it was next to the bed, and he got up.
Sean Taylor apparently grabbed a machete and a confrontation took place, with Taylor getting shot in the groin while his fiancée and daughter hid under the covers. 2 shots were fired, but one hit the wall, severed Taylor's femoral artery, and as a result he would collapse immediately, with blood instantaneously rushing down his leg and pooling on the floor underneath his face-down body.
I saw Sean laying face down, surrounded by blood.
He was a man with the right intentions to protect his family, although just in his early 20s, Sean Taylor had grown tremendously on and off of the football field, becoming a man who had turned over a new leaf by maturing and gaining the respect of those around him. Sean Taylor was born and raised in Miami, a son of a police chief, a private school football standout on both sides of the ball, and a fierce member of the Miami Hurricanes defensive backfield and a Pro Bowl defensive player for the Washington Redskins. He was nicknamed Meast by his teammates, a term originated by meshing the words man and beast together because of his hard-hitting style on the football field. However, even a Meast has no advantage against a 9mm handgun. Break! They say an individual should have faith that they are protected when sleeping behind the walls of your own home alongside your family. But in an instance early on November 26, 2007, one single bullet took Sean Taylor's life. Sean Taylor typically spoke softly and had a shy smile that he reserved for few. Growing up as the son of a police chief, his father would often drop him off several miles before home so he would learn to run. His father told him that you never knew when you would have to run, so you better get good at it. And Sean would develop an uncanny speed paired with a deep knowledge of football, partnered with a sense of belonging on a field. He became unstoppable. Sean Taylor attended Miami's Gulliver Preparatory School, a small school not typically known for being a powerhouse in football. In fact, their only state championship was thanks to Sean. In 2001, Sean would lead his team to the 2A Florida State Championship, rushing for 1,300 yards that season, scoring a record 44 touchdowns and making 100+ tackles for the defense. Yes, you heard that right. Sean Taylor was an Iron Man in high school. In the early 2000s, if you grew up in the Miami area and you played football very well, there was only one university that you were going to attend, and that was the University of Miami, also known as the U, and that's where Sean Taylor would eventually become a star. Fellow U and Washington teammate Clinton Portis was a member of the Hurricanes running back corps during Taylor's high school senior season and was in the coach's room when team personnel were going over recruiting footage. The clip on the screen, Portis said, had the coaches oohing and awing over what was a local running back, Sean Taylor, who Clinton then said,
"Who is this?" And I remember calling Coach Solinger like, "Who is he?" And he was like, "He's coming to play safety. He don't want to play running back." And I'm like, what?
Portis said that once that moment came, Sean Taylor became his best friend without even having met him yet. And Portis was thrilled that the Meast would be on defense and not his competition for playing time. Clinton Portis and Sean Taylor would excel for Miami in their respective positions. Portis as a running back and Sean Taylor as a safety. Sean Taylor's stats for Miami were definitely Ring of Honor worthy, as he was 5th all-time with 14 career interceptions, earned Big East Defensive Player of the Year, was a finalist for the Jim Thorpe Award given to the nation's best defensive back, and was a consensus All-American with 14 interceptions and 306 interception yards, second of all time, only behind Ed Reed. Sean Taylor could run and hit hard. He was even fast enough to also be a member of the University of Miami's track team. Both Portis and Taylor would go on to compete in the NFL together, once again on the same team where they would sip small shots of Hennessy before games. You see, Portis was a big role player in getting Taylor on the Redskins and for getting Taylor an $18 million rookie contract. Clinton Portis would voice on the regular who the Redskins should easily take as their first-round pick in the months prior to the 2004 NFL Draft. Portis would go on to say that every day I would call up the practice facility and get them to transfer me into the coach's room.
And he'd go, Sean. He'd go like that. That's why he didn't hang up.
And sure enough, Sean Taylor would get selected 5th overall by the Washington Redskins in the 2004 NFL Draft. The Miami team he was on was so full of talent that he was one of 6 members of the U to be picked in the first round that year. Taylor made a positive impact right away. Teammates said that during a preseason game in Canton, Ohio at the Hall of Fame field, Sean didn't look like a rookie out there. He was fast, hit hard, and played with no inhibitions. Taylor had 4 interceptions that rookie year. He battled some injuries throughout his short career, but was named to the 2006 Pro Bowl, where one specific opponent had a less than fond memory of Sean Taylor. Brian Moorman was a punter on the opposing team and told the story of the mammoth hit Sean Taylor put on him when he tried to run the ball on a sneak during a 4th down attempted conversion. Moorman faked the punt, got a couple of blocks, headed towards the sideline, and then a few yards short of the first down, boom! Sean Taylor knocked him out so hard that gold paint flakes from Taylor's face mask were left embedded in the front of Moorman's jersey. If Taylor had placed that hit on Moorman any higher, Moorman may have spent the night laying in a hospital bed. The punter said of the hit, "I went out and congratulated him on the hit just so he knew I was up. I just wanted to make sure he knew that I wasn't still laying there. And I just said, hey, nice hit, well done." He actually even ripped a hole in my jersey. So I've got that thing framed up and a picture beside it. So I've got something to remember it by. The 2007 season was setting up to be a career year for Sean Taylor. And for those of you guys that don't know, traditional safeties are typically either good at tackling and stopping the run or at baiting the quarterback in coverage to throw interceptions. Sean Taylor was one of the few exceptions that was not only a lights-out, hard-hitting tackler, but was also very adept at manipulating quarterbacks to throw his way so he could come up with key interceptions. And this was evidenced in the 2007 season because by November, he already had 5 interceptions and should have had even more during a stellar game against Brett Favre and the Green Bay Packers if it wasn't for poor playing conditions. It was a rainy 4 quarters in October, and Taylor should have had 5 interceptions against Favre. He had 2 picks officially giving Favre the all-time interceptions record, but he dropped 3 others probably due to wet conditions. Taylor also forced a fumble. Former Redskins defensive coordinator Greg Williams said him and Taylor had a dynamic that was very similar to a father-son type relationship. And he said, here he's going against arguably one of the best all time in Brett Favre. That day, he wasn't going against the other Green Bay players, he was going against Brett Favre. He had a look in his eyes. He was on a mission to make sure everyone understood that. Sean Taylor was coined as a standoffish, shy, and perhaps even a bit of a troublemaker in his first few years. In 2004, he was ticketed with a DUI that was later dismissed, and that same preseason was given a fine for missing the NFL's required rookie symposium. He was also fined throughout his rookie season for various uniform violations and illegal hits, and during his sophomore season in the NFL, Sean Taylor was charged with felony assault when he confronted individuals who had stolen 2 ATVs from him. Then, in 2006, he was ejected from a wildcard game win for spitting in the face of Tampa Bay Buccaneer Michael Pittman. However, during that year in 2006, Sean Taylor and his fiancée welcomed a baby girl into the world, and he vowed to become a better man for her and for those who looked up to him as a NFL player. During the 2007 season, Taylor was now comfortable and poised to become a legend at the safety position, and was getting more involved with the community while serving a duty he was most proud of, that of a family man. Greg Williams said of Sean, when his daughter was born, he and I had a conversation, and he said to me, "Now I have someone else to play for and to take care of." She meant so much. He was more talkative that year. He did smile more or laugh more around others. In the first couple of years, he was almost like a mute. He didn't say anything. He wasn't socializing with a lot of people, and he was an individual on a mission in life. But now it was more of a family. When he brought her around the players, there was a constant smile on his face. You can't fake the smile on his face. He couldn't hide the joy. However, just a month later, after his dominant game over Favre, Sean Taylor, the changed man and destined to be Pro Bowler for the second consecutive year, would be murdered in his own home. In early November 2007, there was a birthday party at Sean Taylor's Miami suburban home in Palmetto Bay. Several attended, but there was a guest in particular who would return at a later date, but this time without a party invitation. Sean Taylor's half-sister was there with Jason Scott Mitchell, a young male from the Fort Myers area. That day, Mitchell witnessed Sean Taylor hand over $10,000 cash to his half-sister. This resulted in a horrific idea occurring in Mitchell's mind, and soon after that party, he would hatch a plot to rob Sean Taylor's home with a 17-year-old named Eric Rivera, Venja Hunt, Charles Wardlow, and Timothy Brown, all people that were in their late teens to early 20s. These individuals, figuring there was more cash, perhaps $100,000 to $200,000 in Sean Taylor's home, that could easily become theirs. It was the weekend after Thanksgiving in 2007, and the Washington Redskins were playing in Tampa Bay, a typical Sunday afternoon game. So the plan was clearly to enter Sean Taylor's home while he was not there and to rob his family because Sean Taylor wouldn't be there to defend them. But there was one caveat to this plan. While the Washington Redskins were playing in Tampa Bay, Sean Taylor was out with a mild knee injury, and he took the Thanksgiving weekend to return to his Palmetto Bay home to spend some time with his fiancée Jackie and his 18-month-old little girl also named Jackie. All three were in bed when, in the middle of the night hours just past 1 a.m. on November 26th, several men would break into Sean Taylor's 5-bedroom home. Eric Rivera, Jason Scott Mitchell, Charles Wardlow, Venja Hunt, and Timothy Brown all entered searching for cash. A couple of them made their way quickly to the master bedroom where Taylor, his fiancée, and his daughter were asleep. Allegedly, Rivera was the first to the master bedroom, kicking in the door of it to find the three of them unexpectedly at home. Sean Taylor apparently grabbed a machete and a confrontation took place with Taylor getting shot in the groin while his fiancée and daughter hid under the covers. 2 shots were fired, but one hit the wall, severed Taylor's femoral artery, and as a result he would collapse immediately with blood instantaneously rushing down his leg and pooling on the floor underneath his face-down body. Rivera then shot his way out of the house through a glass door and the group fled. Jackie Garcia Haley, Taylor's fiancée, recounted the murder in court per the Washington Post.
He asked me where his machete was, and I told him that it was next to the bed, and he got up.
He proceeded out toward the bedroom door. Garcia Haley would tell the jurors,
I heard a really loud noise, very similar to a gunshot, and a scream, like, ah.
Garcia Haley did not see who shot Taylor. She hid underneath the covers and called 911. After a few moments, she emerged and inched towards Taylor, who gasped for air but was unable to speak.
I saw him laying on the floor, face down, and I just saw lots of blood.
Frantically, she tried to soothe him, grabbing a towel to try and stop the bleeding. When Miami-Dade police officers arrived, Garcia Haley said she sprinted to let them into the gated home.
I ran outside and screamed for help, and I told them someone was dying to please hurry.
She went on to finish saying that she dropped her daughter off at her mother's and would change her blood-soaked clothes before following Taylor in the ambulance to the hospital. Sean Taylor, at the age of 24, was pronounced dead at the hospital the next day. He left behind Jackie, his fiancée and high school sweetheart, a daughter of 18 months, a mother, father, 2 half-siblings, countless relatives, teammates, coaches, and Redskins fans alongside NFL fans to mourn. The suspects were caught pretty quickly, but the gun was never recovered as it was assumed it was thrown into the Everglades swamp as the criminals made their way back across South Florida to the Fort Myers area. The trial was delayed several times, and finally, almost 5 years later, Eric Rivera, the man who fired the single shot to end Taylor's life, was sentenced to 57 years in prison at the age of 23. Jason Mitchell, the brains behind the operation, received life in prison. All of the 5 men involved were sentenced to lengthy prison terms ranging from 20 to 30 years. The final man of the crew wasn't sentenced until 2015. In 2018, Eric Rivera went in front of a judge to ask for a shorter sentence, saying he deserved leniency under changes to Florida's juvenile justice laws and because several other defendants in the case got lesser sentences, but he was denied. This past April would have been Sean Taylor's 37th birthday, where instead of conversations of a potential induction into Canton's Pro Football Hall of Fame are only fleeting memories of a young NFL star whose life was tragically cut short at the hands of strangers 13 years ago. As more years pass by, there are fewer players and coaches who spent time with Sean Taylor on the field. However, upon pulling up to the Redskins practice facility, the first thing you see on the security booth is a number 21 sticker. And although the number is not retired in Washington, no other Redskin has worn that number since Sean Taylor passed away. Sean Taylor is also a member of the Miami Hurricanes Hall of Fame, but will his daughter get to stand up on the stage in Canton just like she did in Coral Gables to induct her father into the Pro Football Hall of Fame? Only time will tell, but if you talk to anyone who played with or against Sean Taylor in those short 3 years at the beginning of the 21st century, they will tell you that 21's bust deserves to be placed in the hall. When you're gone, you hate to say it, but it's how people speak of you, how people carry your legacy and your name. You might get some made up stories, but you get the truth out of Sean, because that's who he was. If someone comes and tells you a story about Sean, I know that ain't Sean. I don't need to listen to that for you to just voluntarily lie to me. So just having that real who is Sean conversation, the good, the bad, the ugly, but the grind that he always had, the dedication, the love for the game, the love for the sport that he always displayed, it's easy for me to talk about Sean. Clinton Portis. Thank you guys for watching our latest Dark Side of the NFL episode. If you missed any of our previous episodes, please take a look at the playlist or look at the 2 uploads recommended to you in front of you. If you could leave a like to support the content, we would appreciate that. And of course, if there are any other stories that you would like us to cover, please let us know what we should cover next in the comment section down below. I'm Mikerophone, and I'm dropping the mic until our next upload.